I've lost my flow chart. I've lost my flow.
Come on, you can do it.
I got shat on by a bird. Okay then, let's crack on. And my head feels like a big ball of mozzarella cheese.
Quickly, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Uphill From Here.
This is Catherine.
And this is Amy. And we're in episode we can't remember
anymore. Lockdown is long.
I don't have anything to talk about anymore.
Lockdown is wearing us down. Like, this is real life, guys.
What are we talking about today?
How tired I am. I'm kidding.
This week we are talking about taking risks, whether they are big risks or small risks. We are kind of following on from last week where we spoke about comfort zones, but this time we're talking about actually those leaps of faith and what those like leaps of faith can do for us and what they mean.
Dear me, we've been here before. Last week we spoke about comfort zones. Some of you are aware of spending a lot of time. So how do you know if you're taking risks? Well, let me tell you, you have. In the space of 4 months last year, you took two major risks. You took two major risks. You upped sticks and moved to a city you'd visited twice before, and you left your job that you moved to for another one that was only temporary. Now, I would say that we took some pretty big risks. They shaped you, made you learn, made you grow, helped you work things out. Thank you, risks. I miss taking you now. I suppose I'm still taking you every day. Stepping into a shop, going to meet a friend is more risky now than ever before. You can learn from these too. You can learn not to take date nights for granted, not to think hugs will always be a given. You can learn to appreciate the small things from these risks. Keep taking risks. We'll be thankful in the long run. From me. You're right. Life is very risky at the minute. Like you say, just like meeting up with a friend is a risk. Going for coffee, going to shops is a risk. And that can be, it's all dependent on how much you value your health and your safety and perhaps your family members, your bubble, your situation, how far it is to travel. Like, the amount of risk that you are taking by doing that is dependent on your life. You said about taking two big risks last year, up sticks, moving your whole life. How did you come to make that decision?
A friend kind of suggested it as a joke because she needed somewhere to live and she needed someone to live with. And I was like, I could do that. I could actually do that. There's really no reason for me not to do that. Worked full time, saved everything so that I would have like 2 months worth of rent before I got there, so that if I hadn't got a job in time, I'd be able to pay my rent and have a little bit to pay for necessities and stuff. And then, yeah, because I was in that position by our cut-off date, I made the decision and up sticks and left.
So in a way, you put certain measures in place to almost like minimize the risk. So you didn't go, like, I think sometimes people think that taking a risk is just something that's just really silly and off the cuff and spontaneous, but sometimes to you that's something that like you weren't sure if you could do. And obviously the financial risk of having to pay rent and not having a job secured, to you tried to minimize that by making sure you worked before you moved to have savings to cover your back.
And it wasn't just the element of like moving and not having the money, it was all the elements of like how it would affect my life. Would I make friends? Would I enjoy it? Would I actually like the city?
Yeah, I think that's a major thing as well, because you weigh up like the financial risk, but like you also need to weigh up the risk to your own happiness and your own well-being. Like, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're struggling so much that it's causing so much stress that you're just miserable and that you regret it. You really need to weigh up the chance of this failing and the chance of the risk of losing money and losing time and losing resources, but also the chance of risking your own mental health. And I think if it gets to that point, you need to turn and be like, is this a risk that's worth taking? is the
Mhm.
is the chance of this creating a greater opportunity and greater happiness for me worth the risks in the meantime?
Mhm.
It's just a balancing act, isn't it? It's weighing up those pros and cons. So you have to
Mhm.
think about what you might lose. You might lose a bit of money, you might lose a bit of time, you might lose a bit of um, stability, and you're losing maybe home comforts because you're away from home. But like you say, you're gaining experience, you're gaining independence,
Mhm.
gaining new friends, you're gaining a wider cultural understanding moving somewhere else. So it's weighing up that, am I going to gain more? Am I going to break even? Am I just going to lose and lose? And it's going to give me a poorer quality of life. It's really like doing a risk management. This makes me sound like a proper stage manager, but like weighing up the risks and being like, is this something that's viable for me right now? Um,
Definitely.
and not feeling like you have to push yourself to put your own well-being at risk. Kind of like we talked about last week, staying somewhere comfortable for right now to preserve your own well-being. That's kind
And
of
like for me, that's exactly it. There's
mm,
no point in me going anywhere right now because it would be horrendous and I would hate it and I would just want to be back home again. So
mm,
there's no point in risking anything. I mean, I can't afford to risk anything at the minute. So I'm doing other things to kind of use my time wisely. Um, but right now, it's more risky than is worth it for me to move somewhere because we're not just facing financial implications anymore. We're facing health implications now.
that's also true. Yeah.
So, and I don't want to put my health at risk.
But again, it's managing that risk and being like, okay, well, I'm going to get us all hand sanitizer and face masks, and we're going to book places that we know are going to be a bit more quiet and private, and that we don't have to come into contact with too many people.
So you have to really up your game on risk factor of going, right, well, how am I going to protect myself if people aren't wearing masks in this area? Or how am I going to make sure that, I don't catch anything from door handles and stuff. And it's like you say, making sure that you wear your mask even if nobody else is, because at the end of the day, you're protecting yourself.
I think everyone needs to wear a mask to protect themselves and to stop the risk to themselves and their loved ones. But everyone else around you has families too, and you don't know if someone's going through treatment or is high risk. You don't know like their
Mm-hmm.
background. They might be living with someone who is high risk. So like you do have to think like, I'm not just doing it to protect myself against the risk. I'm thinking about the risk to others as well. And is it a good idea if I do go out? Maybe I can find an alternative and stay home, not just to protect myself, but to alleviate the risk of other people too.
Dear Amy, I am writing to you from the top of a hill, looking down on the lake, but I feel as though I am right down at the edge of the dock, about to take the plunge. I feel both excited and anxious as I get ready to dive in to the best summer of my life. As I prepare to take the plunge, I want to remind myself of three things. Have courage, be kind, and don't be scared to be a little crazy. From Amy. P.S. Leave the armbands behind, you've got this.
Hmm.
Aww.
When I was thinking about risk, I remember writing this letter. I remember where I was sat. I remember it when I went to camp. We had to write a letter at the start of summer to ourselves at the end of our camp experience to see like how much we'd grown as a person, if we'd met like our goals. So weird. I remember sitting at the top of the hill being so scared.
Yeah. I
And
like talk about it as like taking a plunge. It's like that waiting, because I feel like a lot of things like camp and going to Disney is very like that. It's like waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting with your legs like dangling in the water, like your toes touching, and then all of a sudden you just push yourself off the edge and go and it's that kind of sensation. And I really like that you got that through in your letter. I think that's really important.
yeah, because I remember like when I went to camp, that analogy was true because I was really scared of the lake. The lake was like a giant quarry,
Yeah,
and like the bottom was like hundreds of feet down. Like
really.
it was again we talked about last week. It's stepping into the unknown. So
Mm-hmm.
when I actually like jumped off the jetty, I remember doing it that summer. It's not, you're scared of the bit when you're standing on the edge, like you say, with your toes over the edge. That's scary. And you're like, oh, but what if this and what if that? And oh, there's turtles in here and there's
The
fish.
minute you're in, you're in, and
Yeah,
then you go, oh, it's not so bad in here now.
it's okay. And
Yeah.
it was worth taking that step because it turned out okay and I gained confidence in the water. And yeah, by the end of summer, I had jumped in the lake and it's that feeling of joy and just,
Actually going to camp, but also the fear of the water kind of thing. Like, you, in your mind, that was a massive risk, because it was like, what if this, what if that, what are the implications, what if I get hurt, what if something comes out the water?
I was so scared. I cried when I left the country because
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was going to be a good counselor. I didn't know if
Mhm.
the lifestyle at camp was going to be for me. I didn't know
Yeah.
how to make friends. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get through the summer and not feel homesick, because I'd gone through quite a low time, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to cope.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed my life. It was the best thing. Yeah, because you can worry about those things, but it's like, but what if you feel amazing and proud and really happy and you have a lot of fun, like, but
Yeah.
what if those things, I think when you're always looking to take a risk in your life, you're constantly thinking about like the negative outcomes, like, but what if this goes wrong, and what if this happens, but what if it all works out, and what if you're really happy? Like, think about that as well. You have to weigh up and give both a fair chance when you're weighing up risks.
You know, that quote of like, but what if I fall? Oh, but darling, what if you fly? Like, you know, there's always that other side to it.
Doing an experience like camp, or like Alicia previously talked about in an episode, doing the Disney college program, can feel like a big risk.
Yeah.
Maybe taking a gap year, or taking a sandwich year like she did, can feel like a risk because it's not the norm. It's like, well, that's not what a lot of people are doing, or some people are staying at home and getting a job, or some people are staying at home and studying, some people are going straight to uni.
Yeah.
So risky for me to do anything that's other than what's expected of me. But when you take a step back, you're like, why is what everyone else and what society expects me to do dictating what I choose to do? But yeah, so it maybe financially wasn't the safest option for me. I could have stayed home and made maybe quadruple what I earned at camp, but that's not what I went for. And I just think financial stability isn't everything. Sometimes you have to take a plunge and be like, oh, I might be a little bit strapped for cash for a while, but what I'm gaining is worth far more than some extra pocket money.
Sometimes the experience is more important than the amount of money you earn from it. You know, like with, again, you know, sometimes you have to take that risk and go, right, okay, it's not going to barely pay me anything. It might pay me a little bit, but it isn't going to be enough to live. But I'm going to take it anyway and take a chance on it because I want the experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This week, our guest is Ria. She is at Ria Walia on Instagram. She's a creator. She creates YouTube videos and blogs, and she talks all things kind of like careers and student life. So she has a lot of stuff on kind of gaining jobs and how to apply for internships and all those sorts of things. She studies maths at King's College London, and she's also got an art startup for artists of all forms, where she kind of shares their work through an Instagram page. She's come to talk to us about the risks that she has taken in her life.
Dear Kat and Amy, I've taken loads of risks. Firstly, I guess my university journey has never been conventional. I've actually rusticated a semester, so it was a huge risk. And I was contemplating to do so for so long. I wouldn't have done it unless my personal tutor had convinced me, purely because why I took that risk was I had actually ended up doing 3 internships last summer, and the third one had ended mid-October, and our term starts at the last week of September, so I'd pretty much missed about 4 weeks, which I thought I could catch up on. And then the other reason was, it was just, I had quite a bit going on in my personal life during my exams of last May, and also taking that sort of, I wouldn't say baggage, but just, you know, all of those things that were happening in my personal life, and then, you know, going through all that employment, pretty much worth of what, June till October, that's what, June, July, August, September, October, 5 months. Wow, 5 months of employment was quite intense, not because, you know, it was also because it was with 3 different employees. So I just felt like mentally I was really tired, and I just couldn't go into my final year tired and exhausted. I needed that break. So, and I had that conversation. I was really transparent with my universities, with my personal tutor, saying like, this is a situation. I really want to graduate this year, but I'm just not, I don't feel ready. And that's when he said, actually, there's an option for you to rusticate and actually do half of your final year this year. So take the first semester off and return for the second semester. And then I traveled to 6 different countries, which was really nice. And genuinely, I think you need to recognize when you're burnt out and when you mentally need a break. It's so important. And if I hadn't taken those few months off, I don't think I would have been able to even sit any exams for my final year module. So I had listened to my personal tutor and returned to university in January, having taken those 2-3 months off. And I was energized and I was ready to, put my best foot forward. And I loved it. And unfortunately for a lot of my friends who were graduating this year, they didn't have a graduation ceremony. And I feel like maybe this was a blessing in disguise that I didn't graduate this summer, because, otherwise I wouldn't have had a graduation ceremony. And then deferring or rusticating the semester means that next year I hopefully will have a graduation ceremony. So I guess that was my biggest risk. And I think a lot of people think university is straightforward, or even if you change your degree, or if you take a gap year, within your 3-year or 4-year course, it's a huge failure or anything like that. It's not. Right? Everyone has their own journey, not even just uni journey, just general career journey. And loads of people have so much going on, and people don't appreciate how hard it is to do a degree, right? And especially if you didn't enjoy a degree, and that was definitely the case for me. I haven't been very vocal about disliking my degree, but that's something I do want to discuss. Somewhere on my blog, or even if us guys, we can just kind of talk about, did you guys enjoy your degree? Because I didn't, and kind of in hindsight, I wish I had done something more applied, because I did a maths degree, still I'm doing a maths degree, and to ask someone who's 17, is it 17, 16, 17, 18, to make a decision on the next 3 years of your life of what you want to do is absurd, right? And also, I don't even know if a degree even means much anymore, unless obviously you want to become a professor, or there's it's a specialist career or industry. So really, think if you want to do a degree, or even, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent, but I guess that's another risk, really, taking such a huge loan to do a degree in something that you might not even enjoy. So I guess university was the biggest risk I took. But indeed, it opened up so many doors for me. So if I hadn't done this undergraduate degree, I don't think I would have been doing all these crazy things that I've done. So so that's my letter to both of you lovely ladies. Thank you for having me, and I'd love to have you guys on my channel. So hopefully a video with us 3 again will feature on my YouTube channel as well. So please follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. And catch you guys later. Bye.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. You are asked to decide basically the next step, the biggest step in your career, when you're 17.
You're a child.
You're still a child.
You're a child.
And it is a risk. And I think sometimes every option you take comes with a risk. So some people might choose to go to uni. Like she say, you're taking out a loan. You maybe are going to be 50k in debt. That's a huge financial risk. You might choose not to go to uni and not do what many of your peers might be doing, and take a year out to think. And people might think that's a bigger risk because you are maybe wasting or risking your time or your progression and career opportunities, and you're missing out. But I think in the long run, everything comes with a degree of risk. But you have to just listen to your gut. At the end of the day, if if you are not happy with your degree or you want to switch degrees, take a year out, you need to take a little break and come back to your studies, do it. Like, you have to do what's right for you. You really, I think, like we say, the biggest risk is your own happiness. So do what's right.
Well, I think we need to break this idea that if you make a decision that you think is right for you and then it turns out not to be, that's fine. You can change that. You know, you don't have to think, oh my God, I'm stuck in this now. I can't. There's no way out. There's always a way out. Even if it's not the ideal route, there's always a way out. And I think that's something that we need to kind of, you know, taking a risk doesn't mean there's not a final point to it. It doesn't either go to shit or go really well. There's a whole scale in between that.
Yeah, there's so many options.
Safe.
Yeah.
But I thought something that was really interesting was her talking about how taking a break was taking a risk and realizing when you're burnt out. And it's taking a risk to turn around and go, I can't now. I need time. Give me time. And I thought it was really interesting that Ria kind of spoke about that as a risk, because we don't consider that to be a risk, but it is, because sometimes you have to put things on hold and you have to let opportunities go that might be perfect for you because you're just not in the right headspace for it.
100%. It's not always like a risk, sometimes isn't always like taking something on. It's saying no to something, taking some time off, because I get when she said about taking a break from uni, that may seem like a risk to so many people because you're risking your education, you're losing a bit of time, you're maybe like slowing down your career prospect, your career progression, your opportunities. But at the end of the day, none of that matters because she wasn't happy. The biggest risk you can take is with your own happiness. So it's right for you. You can ask friends, you can ask family, you can ask professors, whatever. You can ask their advice, like, oh, is this the right thing to do? I feel like this is a risk. Is it right for me? And people can advise you, but nobody can tell you how to live your life. You have to make those decisions. And you have to be able to prioritize your own well-being in that.
Have we come to a natural ending?
I think so. Okay, so thank you so much for sticking around and for listening to our podcast every week. We really love your support. We'd love it if you share it with a friend, share your thoughts with us, get in touch. Catherine, how can they get in touch with us?
Get in touch through the Instagram and the Facebook at Uphill From Here Podcast, or you can email us uphillfromherepodcast@gmail.com. We've also just launched our hashtag Dear Cat and Amy on Instagram, where we want to hear your thoughts. What could you talk about for hours? What is something that's been on your mind? Is there something you want to get off your chest? And if so, write it out, hashtag us, and we will possibly share it on our page. Or if you just want to have a chat about it, we're here for that chat.
Yeah. And thank you very much to Ria for chatting to us this week. We really enjoy listening to your thoughts. And we're going to link all of her socials, how to get in contact with her, how to engage with her in the bio. Thank you so much for watching. We love you all. Thank you very much. Have a lovely week, and we'll see you next week.
We love you.
Bye.